Welcome back, everybody, to the Pat Flynn Show. It is such a joy to be with you as always. And cheers. I've got my Monday morning cup of coffee, and we are going to talk about, are kettlebells dangerous? Yes, this is a very common question, common concern that I hear from people who are, well, really two types of people. One, people who aren't familiar with kettlebells. They want to know, are they safe? What sort of risks come with kettlebell training? And there's also another category of people, and that would be people who had a first bad experience with kettlebell training, and maybe they actually did get tweaked or injured when training with kettlebell. So I want to talk about, are kettlebells dangerous? Obviously, my general answer is going to be no, they're not inherently dangerous, but we have to talk about that. And then I want to share some principles and strategies that I believe will help you take the safest, but also most effective and efficient approach to training. Because for me, and I think this should just apply to pretty much anybody when it comes to fitness, performance and health, or fitness and health, should not be at odds, right? The things that make you healthier, leaner, stronger, fitter should also be the things that keep you safe and promote your overall health. So we never want a tension between the two. So cheers. We are live streaming. So if you're just tuning in, let me know either what you're drinking or where you're tuning in from in the comments. Please hit the like button. In fact, headbutt the like button. Let's make it a little bit more dramatic this morning. Share, subscribe if you're on YouTube. If you're on iTunes and you're just listening, well, please consider subscribing and ranking the show there. Would really appreciate it. If we have time at the end, we'll do some Q&A, or maybe we'll do Q&A as we go. So yeah, check in. Let me know how you are doing on this very fine, lovely Monday morning. And we're going to talk about, are kettlebells dangerous? Are they dangerous? So I did a little Googling this morning and just wanted to see what the Googler had to say about this. So I typed in, are kettlebells dangerous? And fortunately, most of the articles that came up were pretty good. Most of them, some of them were kind of, a little clickbaity. It's like, kettlebells are absolutely dangerous, or yes, kettlebells are dangerous. And then you would click it, and then it would come with a bunch of qualifications, like they're dangerous if you don't use them right. And that is the general correct response. So why don't we just start there? Are kettlebells dangerous? My short answer to this is no, or at least kettlebells are not any more inherently dangerous than pretty much any other form of resistance training. So what is a kettlebell? Let's just go back to basics. The kettlebell is a mystical, magical, gains-making cannonball with a handle on it. It is a compact weight that you can use to perform many different types of functional exercises with. You can press it, you can squat it, you can swing it, you can snatch it, you can Turkish get up it, if we can use a Turkish get up as a verb. And the kettlebell comes in many different sizes. Some kettlebells are relatively light. Some kettlebells are offensively heavy. So it is a form of resistance training. It is a form of weight training. So with that being said, kettlebells, to my mind, are no more or less dangerous than any other form of resistance training. However, resistance training does come with risks, but so does walking. Breathing comes with risks. I'm taking a risk right here, being on this podcast. So you're never gonna get anything that is completely risk-free. If that's your mindset, I think it's overly fearful, and it's hard to live a productive, flourishing, or enjoyable life. If you're just constantly worried about risks. Rather, the question is, what can we do to mitigate risks? What can we do to make sure that I'm not taking any unnecessary risks? Frank, what is up? Good morning to you, my friend. Frank says kettlebells make your body into a weapon. Yeah, I often say that the kettlebell is the minimalists and generalists' ultimate secret weapon for making your body into a weapon. So many weapons. And the reason I say that is the kettlebell, for most people, most of the time, can get you most of the fitness results that you want. Is it going to be better than every other piece of equipment at every single thing that any other piece of equipment can do? No, I think that that's too strong. But is it good to great at, or at least fairly competent at building pretty much all the athletic qualities that you would want: strength, muscle, mobility, stability, endurance, metabolic conditioning? Absolutely. So to my mind, again, the kettlebell is pretty much indispensable for anybody who's looking for effectiveness and efficiency when it comes to physical fitness, especially if you're busy and you don't have a lot of time. There's my quick sell. But are they dangerous? Well, there's two ways that the kettlebell could betray you. There's two ways that I often see people brought to some grief when it comes to kettlebell training. Let's put it that way. And if you keep these two common mistakes in mind, you will inherently have, I think, a much better time with kettlebell training. So again, it's not the tool that's inherently dangerous here. Rather, it's how people use the tool. And just as people can misuse barbells, they can misuse body weight, they can misuse bands, they can misuse dumbbells and hurt themselves. Same thing, people can misuse kettlebells. However, we also know that people can use properly barbells, dumbbells, bands, their own body weight, right? So it's not the tool, it's how you use the tool that matters. That's the first point. All right. Now, there's two ways that you can misuse the tool. Okay. The first one is just not knowing how to use the tool at all from a technique standpoint. So the first thing you have to understand are the basic mechanics and proper technique for the fundamental kettlebell exercises, which for me would include swings, Turkish get up, military press, goblet squat. At least those 4 exercises: swings, military press, goblet squat, and Turkish get up. Those are like the core 4 kettlebell exercises that before you do learn anything else and before you start following a kettlebell program or start hopping into workouts, you better understand the mechanics of these exercises. I have, of course, countless tutorials of these on my YouTube channel. So if you want to see the exercises broken down into some detail, you can just peruse my channel or go to the website 101kettlebellworkouts.com. That'll give you a nice juicy PDF of a bunch of kettlebell workouts, but it will also link out to tutorials as well. That's totally free, by the way. Okay, so mistakes people make in their technique. Well, when it comes to the kettlebell swing, for example, they tend to turn it into a shoulder exercise, a pseudo delt raise, or they round their back and they end up tweaking their back. There's many different mistakes people make in techniques, but the one thing that you have to keep in mind when assessing whether the kettlebell is dangerous or not is whether somebody actually knows how to use it, right? Any tool, take a construction tool, can be dangerous if you don't use it properly. Like if you hold a saw by the wrong end, that's going to be dangerous, right? You'll probably lose some fingers, right? So how you use the tool makes a very substantial difference. Same thing with the kettlebell. If you are not paying attention to the nuances of the technique, I'm not going to say you're going to get hurt right away, but you're greatly increasing the risk of injury down the line. And you're also just not going to be getting what you want out of the exercise, right? So in the kettlebell swing, if you're not really producing power with your hips, if you're not keeping a flat back, that crown to coccyx alignment, if you're kind of pseudo delt raising it, you're just, even if you don't get hurt right away, you're missing out on the benefits of the primary intended benefits of the exercise. And this is getting back to the point I was making earlier, where the safest positions are also the most effective and efficient positions, right? There should never be a conflict in terms of biomechanics and exercise technique between safety on one hand and effectiveness and efficiency on the other hand. Where you are safest is where you're going to be strongest and get the most from the exercise. So that's category number 1. Making sure you understand the techniques. That's going to be that's going to be the difference maker, if you will, between whether your kettlebell experience is safe and productive and gets you the results you want, or whether you wind up with a tweak back for 2 weeks or worse. Number 2, and this one is even more common. This one is even well, maybe it's not more common. I'm not ready to make that claim, but it's very common, and that is people can have decent technique, and oftentimes they do. But they don't have intelligent programming. They don't approach their workouts intelligently or prudently. And so even if somebody has decent kettlebell swing technique, even if somebody gets up to speed on, the mechanics of the kettlebell swing, what can happen and what does happen is they can just do too much too soon, right? They can do too much volume, too much density, too much intensity. So even if your technique is good, even if you're using the tool mechanically correctly, you're holding the saw by the handle rather than the blade. If you just do too much and you overload your body in some sense, that is a very common reason that people get hurt. Not just with kettlebells, but anything, dumbbells, barbells, whatever. So it's technique on the one hand, and it's the managing program variables on the other. These are the 2 things that you have to constantly keep in mind to make sure that your training is not just safe, but effective and efficient. Onlooker says, in your thumbnail, you look like Richard the Little. I don't know who that is, but I'm going to take that as a compliment. Okay, so what are some examples of this? Somebody gets their kettlebell swing. Here's a common example. I've had a lot of people who've joined my email list or come to me and say, Pat, kettlebells seem cool, but I did kettlebells and it hurt my back. Okay. Was it the kettlebell that hurt your back, or was it the way you used the kettlebell that hurt your back, or was it some kind of group fitness instructor who kind of threw you into a gigantic circuit with way more reps and intensity than should have been there? Was it that person that hurt your back? Because let's get specific about this. By the way, group fitness classes are kind of notorious for this. They're sort of the enemy in a sense, that I think they're often responsible for this misconception that kettlebells are dangerous, because somebody will go into a group fitness class. The instructor, who has no real in-depth experience in kettlebell training, will bring out a string of kettlebells of whatever size and just have people just start hacking away at them, with little rhyme or reason, usually just to music, right? So one is, people might not be familiar at all with the technique, or they might get a horribly inadequate crash course in the middle of the class. But then they might spend, the entire class hammering away on swings when they've never done swings before. So even if their technique is good, it's just going to be so much volume, so much density, that they're just not ready for it. And that can lead to injury. That can lead to tweaks. So the 2 points I'm making here is that, no, kettlebells are not inherently dangerous. It's how you use the kettlebell that matters, both in terms of technique and programming. And for me, it's all about finding that minimum effective dose, right? Like, what is that sweet spot that I need to hit once my technique is down to make sure that I'm getting the benefits that I want from my kettlebell training? So how's this so far? Are we tracking? Is this helpful to some extent? I hope that this conversation moving forward can serve as something of a flagship, where if somebody says, "Are kettlebells dangerous?" you can just send them this video and I will talk to them. I'm talking to you. If you're one of those people who was sent this video, kettlebells are not dangerous. They're just another form of resistance training, and they can be used for the forces of good, or they can be used for the forces of pain and evil. And what determines that outcome is, of course, how one approaches the tool, how one uses the tool and implements it into a greater kettlebell exercise program. So if you're starting out, what I recommend is, again, getting down the 4 basic kettlebell exercises. And these, again, would be the 2-hand kettlebell swing, the Turkish get-up, and the military press, and the goblet squat. Again, I have many tutorials of these throughout my YouTube channel. Most of you are probably already familiar with them. And then starting out, what I recommend are doing relatively short workouts that allow you to, quote unquote, practice these exercises. So kind of switching your training mentality at first, rather than wanting to just blast yourself for the sake of blasting yourself. When you're first learning kettlebells, have relatively short practice routines where you can really focus on mastering the nuances of the exercises, mastering the techniques. And I think practice routines work really well if you just have 2 exercises and you set up a scheme where you can more or less practice these exercises for somewhere between 10 to 20 minutes. I think for most people starting out, that is all you need to get great results and to really dial in your technique. And then once you have that, once you've been practicing for a couple of weeks and your technique's on point, then you can do the more intense stuff and learn other exercises. So one example of this would be a classic scheme of just swings and get-ups with auto regulation. So let me put this out there for you. I think you'll find this useful. So you're going to practice kettlebell swings and Turkish get-ups. And what this will look like is, maybe you'll have 15 minutes. Let's start with 15 minutes. I think that's a good amount of time. Maybe up to 20 minutes, somewhere between 10 to 20 minutes. Let's say that. We'll give ranges. I like giving ranges for training starting out, because then you can auto-regulate, meaning you can listen to your body and adjust as accordingly as you need to your ability, to your level of fatigue, level of soreness, etc. So you put 10 to 20 minutes on the clock. You divide it in half. Half of that time goes to practicing swings. And what you will do is you will just practice them in sets where all of your reps are beautiful. So here's what I mean by that. So if you're practicing sets of swings for 10 minutes, you'll do a set of swings and you'll stop at any point when you have a rep that isn't beautiful. So maybe that's 5 reps, maybe that's 10 reps, maybe that's 15 reps, but you stop while you still feel good and your reps still look awesome. And then you rest as much as you need between sets to feel like you can perform the next set as beautifully as the last. So there's a strong qualitative dimension here. I don't like saying rest for just 2 minutes or 3 minutes. I want you to rest as much as you need, but as little as you need between sets to feel like you can perform that next set with as much precision as the last. And you're really focusing on practicing, nailing the technique. So as you're doing these swings, you'll remind yourself, okay, hip slam forward, abs brace at the top, lats engaged. You kind of give yourself the simple cues, and you're really focusing this workout as a form of practice where you're trying to make every rep look as beautiful and as identical to the last. There's kind of this Bruce Lee cliche. He says, I don't do 1,000 kicks. I do one kick 1,000 times. That's the mentality I want you to have starting out. You're not going to do 10 minutes worth of swings. You're going to do one swing perfectly for 10 minutes, right? I mean, you'll do more than one swing at a time, but the idea is if you're really focusing on technique, every swing should look the same, or your goal should be to make every swing look the same. Same amount of crispness, same amount of power, same posture, same breathing, all of it. Now, as it happens, when you practice in this way, you will inadvertently get a tremendous workout. Like chances are you're going to really elevate your heart rate. You're going to get the deep muscle fatigue. You're going to sweat, but that's not the primary focus. The primary focus is mastering the technique. And then you will just do the same thing for Turkish get-ups. You'll take your time. You'll do one beautiful, as perfect as you can rep on your right, rest however much you need, go on your left, and repeat for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever you have allotted yourself. And then what I would say for these workouts is when you feel like your technique is sort of starting to slide, that's when you're done. If you notice that with the kettlebell swings, great. You'll switch to the Turkish get-up. If you notice that with the Turkish get-up, then your routine is finished. So what you could do is you could have an A day, and on your A day you have swings and get-ups, right? And you practice, and it's a 10 to 20 minute session, and you divide that time into between practicing swings and practicing get-ups. And for the swings, what you do is you do as many sets as many reps as you can, where all the reps are beautiful. And most of the time, that's going to be no more than 10 reps, right? Maybe occasionally you'll sneak up above 10, but I think 10 reps or fewer is going to be just right, especially if you're really putting the maximum oomph into every set of swings. 10 reps or fewer is about right. Then for Turkish get-ups, 1 rep at a time, as many high-quality reps as you can get for the remainder of the time of the workout. That's going to be A day, swings and get-ups. That's classic kettlebell training right there, right? Use a weight that is reasonably challenging, but not crazy according to your ability and confidence level. Doesn't have to be crazy. Remember, this is just practice. We're not trying to set any major PRs. This is starting to learn how to use the tool and doing so intelligently and starting to see some of the benefits from kettlebell training. So don't worry too much about intensity. If you really want a starting weight, I would say most men are around a 16 kilogram kettlebell, most women around an 8 kilogram kettlebell. Again, adjusting for prior fitness level, experience with kettlebells, age, size, all that. But that's a general recommendation. Elizabeth has a piece of advice. It's a good one. She says, don't trip over kettlebells, stub your toe on them, or walk backwards and fall over them. Otherwise, very safe. I strongly agree with that, Elizabeth. But even though you're kind of joking, this is a serious concern. The number of times that I've seen people just be very clumsy and come close to the edge of death because of misplaced fitness equipment is more than what should be acceptable in a civilized society. So I'll say that. Another thing is not just thinking about your own safety with where the kettlebells are, but other people's safety. Like when you're swinging a kettlebell, there should be nothing in your line of fire, right? Like if the kettlebell were to slip from your hands, you shouldn't worry. Like there should be nothing precious that it could destroy, whether that is a human life or a cat or a stained glass window. So just your point is actually a really good one, Elizabeth, where you just be mindful of your environment in general. That's just like good life advice, but it certainly applies to kettlebell training, not just for your own safety. So you're not just, and here's another one, right? When you're doing Turkish get-ups, people will sometimes switch kettlebells and they'll do a Turkish get-up, but there'll be like a kettlebell right behind them or right next to them, and they'll like land or roll on the kettlebell. It's like, what are you doing? Be mindful of your environment. Make sure your space and area is clean and tidy and you know where things are and that there's nobody who's going to get hurt if you mess up. If a kettlebell slips from your hand or you just have to bail on a rep, make sure that you can get out of the way safely and that nobody else is going to take a kettlebell to the face. That would obviously be undesirable. So good point, Elizabeth. Good reminder. Okay, back to the program. So we have our A day. This is just like you're getting started with kettlebells. A day. What did we say it was? We said it was swings and get-ups. All right, I just talked about that. B day can be goblet squats and presses, and we can do the same thing. But what I might recommend for this is just to do ladders with goblet squats and presses. So what you can do is you can do 2 goblet squats, and then you can do 1 press right and left. Then you can do 4 goblet squats, and then you can do 2 presses right and left. Then you could do 6 goblet squats, and then you can do 3 presses right and left. And you could go up to 10 goblet squats and 5 presses. And that would be a fine routine right there in its own right. But if you're feeling a little spicy, a little sassy, then you can go back down. You could do 10 goblet squats and 5 presses again, then 8 goblet squats and 4 presses, then 6 goblet squats and 3 presses. So the ladder scheme, why does a ladder scheme work really well? Well, it's really good for building strength. It's awesome in terms of exercise pairing, like goblet squats and presses. Now, chances are that whatever weight you're using will probably be easier to goblet squat than press. So that's why we have the disparity of reps. We're going up by 2s in the goblet squat, only 1 by the press. So that type of rep scheme will allow for good practice, good high quality practice. Again, take as much rest between sets as you need to feel like you can go into the next set with as beautiful technique as the one previous, with good confidence. So I'm not giving any hard rest prescriptions here. I would also, again, say give yourself like 10 to 20 minutes to just work through these ladders. And if you get through the entire ladder, call it there. If you just feel like your fatigue level has reached a certain threshold that your technique is no longer on point, then just call it there. Lean into auto-regulation, my friends. This is something I talked about with Jeff Newport a couple of weeks ago. Listen to your body, right? If something doesn't feel right, stop. Common sense rules apply across the board. So yeah, I think goblet squats and pressing ladders for your B day would be awesome. And you could either do these separately, or you could superset them if you want. So you could just do your goblet squat ladder and then do your pressing ladder, or you could do 1 rung of the goblet squats, 1 rung of the press, the second rung of the goblet squats, the second rung of the press. I probably prefer that. I think it's a little bit more interesting. And then rest as much as you need, between sets. Does that make sense? Give me like a thumbs up or some type of feedback here, so I know that I'm not just it makes sense in my head, but that doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot. Okay, so we have our A day and our B day. Now here's what I like to do starting out. Week 1, Monday is A day, Wednesday is B day, Friday is A day. Week 2, Monday is B day, Wednesday is A day, Friday is B day. So we see that we alternate. We go ABA week 1, and then we go BAB week 2. So it's kind of alternating every week between ABA and BAB. I would recommend that you have a day of, again, starting out, that you don't train on consecutive days. Now, is it going to be the end of the world? Are you like definitely going to get hurt if you train on consecutive days? No. So you could do like Monday A day, Tuesday B day, and then Thursday A day again. But I think generally a Monday, Wednesday, Friday split, or Monday, Wednesday, Saturday split, training on non-consecutive days is probably good starting out for most people, again, as a basic beginner routine. And hey, look, even if you're not a beginner, and I know a lot of people, if not most people watching this, aren't beginners, this structure I'm giving is just like a great return to program at any point. It's a great, like, there's just because it's beginner doesn't mean that it's not going to be beneficial. So if you just, even if you've been doing kettlebells for a while, if you just went back to swings, get-ups, presses, and goblet squats, and, you give yourself a decent intensity to train with, you're going to get stronger from this. You're going to see a lot of benefits from this. So don't feel like this is just for the complete, the greenhorn, as we say. This is something that anybody could use and benefit from. But it is a really good structure for people who are just starting out. And then what do you do on the off days? We'll go for walks, stretch anything that's tight, maybe go for a light jog, do some light cardio activity, stuff like that. But the 3-day training split of ABA, BAB, I think is going to be how to intelligently approach training starting out. So that way you can practice and master the nuances of the technique, which is really important for making sure that you don't wreck yourself when you're training with kettlebells, and do so in an appropriate, sensible way that will get you results while managing and mitigating the risk that comes with training. And remember, that's what we talked about at the beginning, is that all exercise comes with risk. Life, walking down the street, comes with risk. So it's not what doesn't, it's not like what is just 100% perfectly safe. Nothing is, right? I've been training for a while. I've got my tweaks and my, my stupid moments. We all do. We all do. And I always look back and think, how could any human be that stupid? But what we must do is constantly ask ourselves, what can I do to manage risk and to mitigate risk? That is, of course, the important question. All right. So that's what I have for you. I hope that that's helpful. If it is, please like and share this video. And the main points, we're going to take questions here in a minute. The main points I want to make are this: kettlebells are not inherently dangerous. Like any other tool in the weight room, it's how you use the tool that matters. And the two things that you must focus on one hand, is proper technique. Learn the nuances of the exercises. Learn both the purpose of the exercise. What is this exercise meant to do? What am I supposed to be training in this exercise? Understand what the exercise is for, and then understand how to do the exercise, the mechanics. Okay, and then approach training in an intelligent way where even if your technique is good, you're not going to overwhelm or overload yourself. And I gave you that 3-day training split, which I think is a perfect either starting program or just refresher program, whether you're a complete beginner or whether you're a veteran. I would challenge veterans to go back to what I just outlined. Use a challenging weight, and I promise you, you'll enjoy that program. You'll get stronger. Sweet. All right, questions. We'll spend a few minutes on questions here. So now is the time to hop in the comm box. Let me know what you have for me. Anything related to kettlebells, kettlebell training, we will field that now. Cheers, by the way. Let me know what's in your cup of coffee. I recommend coffee for these morning chats, or a shrimp cocktail, whatever you prefer. Ricky says, Pat, some say that daily kettlebell training is dangerous. Can swings be performed daily? What's your take on that? Ricky, awesome question. Some people do say that. Some people say a lot of things. The problem is it's just such a, let's talk about daily training first, and then we'll talk about daily kettlebell swings. So it's just way too general, right? Because training can mean a whole lot of things. Now, I actually like a high frequency approach to training. I like doing something every day. And in fact, members of Strong On will realize that. So my primary program, Strong On, has something for people to do every single day. So it is a daily training program. Now, people don't have to do something every day. I recommend to do at least between 2 to 4 sessions per week, but the option is there to do something every day. However, here's the key point. What we do every day varies. So some days are just focused purely on recovery and mobility. So it's very light, it's very restorative. We're focusing on movement quality. We're focusing on increasing strength through range of motion. And so, like, to my mind, if you're approaching training as a generalist and you're saying, okay, here's kind of all the different things that are going to help me flourish physically: strength, lean muscle, cardiovascular capacity, metabolic conditioning, mobility, flexibility. Like, you kind of have like these big ticket items that make up general physical preparedness. To my mind, then, you can do something intelligently every day where you will not only not overtrain, but you'll probably be better off for it. But you have to make sure that not every day is crushingly intense, right? So if somebody's, to give an example of something I wouldn't recommend, if somebody's like, we're going to do a high rep, heavy squat session every day, that to me would be foolish. That to me is asking for trouble. It's asking for overtraining. It's asking to wear out your joints. And there's just really no reason to do it. Like, whatever benefits you would get from that are so exceedingly marginal compared to the risks that you take on, that it just makes no sense to my mind. But if you have, 2 or 3 strength training days a week, maybe 1 or 2 conditioning days a week, and the rest are focused on mobility and recovery, you're doing something every day there. And there's benefits to that because I like having a daily movement habit, right? I think that it's a good idea to do something every day. Shoot, you could just walk every day. Like, just, if nothing else, you just walk. And And again, like what could possibly be the downside of that? So again, it's not whether or not doing something every day is good or bad. It's what you do and how you approach that will determine the outcome. And from the perspective of a generalist, I think you not only can, but might have good reasons to do something every day. You just have to understand that some days are going to be short and light and focused on mobility and just quality movement. And then you'll have a couple days that are more intense and heavy and stuff like that. And so the kettlebell itself is versatile enough that you could have a day where, yeah, you have one day of like really heavy front squats, right? But then you have another day where you just have a really light kettlebell and you're doing halos and windmills and just kind of like bottoms up get up. So it's systemically refreshing and restoring rather than draining. And so the kettlebell itself is versatile enough that I think you can do something every day, even if you don't have to. That's a key. I'm not saying that you have to do something every day, but you could do something every day with a good, intelligent program, and you could benefit from that. And the upshot is, I think, just daily movement is a plus when it's intelligently designed. So I hope that answers your first question. To the second question, can swings be performed daily? I will say yes, but same rules apply. I don't recommend doing swings daily if you're new to kettlebells. I think you need to get a good amount of swings under your belt. You need to have the technique down, and you need to just kind of like build up the strength and the calluses, if you will. Like you got to get your body used to swings first. But my 300 kettlebell swings challenge, for example, is a daily swing challenge where we do swings every day, but we don't do it over the course of a year. You know, this to me would be something like a push effort. It's kind of like a surge. It's a challenge. So it's a short-term thing where we're just trying to accomplish a particular goal, and then we back off eventually. So I think that would be a good way to approach what you're asking about. But even within 300 swings, we vary how we do our swings. We vary the intensity. So some days are very dense, very intense. Other days the swings are light. They're spread out. So if you are going to do swings every day, I think, again, if you're fixing one variable like frequency, then you need to manipulate other variables like density and intensity and stuff like that to make sure that you're training intelligently, that you're still getting the benefits you want without overloading any particular muscle group or anything like that. So can sometimes useful for daily swings, but I don't. For me, it's not usually a year-long thing. It's kind of like a short-term challenge. All right, good question. Hope that helps, Ricky. Let's take a few more here. Elizabeth says, would you not have some deadlifts and rows in your routines? Yeah, I think for the structure that I gave before, Elizabeth, I think deadlifts would be a great kind of warm-up or prep exercise. So you could do those just before you start getting into your swings. And same thing with rows. Kettlebell row is, I think, as you're probably suggesting, it's like the runt of the litter. It's like this poor neglected exercise that doesn't get a lot of love. Now, if you follow my programming, I give the kettlebell row a lot of love. I think it's a great exercise. So if nothing else, put deadlifts and rows as kind of just your warm up and prep. I think that would be a good way to throw it into that structure. And again, doesn't need to be anything fancy, just a few sets just to get the movement patterns engaged. But when we're talking like basic minimalist routines, there's always like more you could do, but at some point we just draw a line and say, okay, this is what we're going to do starting out. And for most people, this is going to be just fine. So yeah. Peter says, when you train people, can you get results by a half hour per week with kettlebells? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, many, I don't know about most, but many of my routines are well under half an hour. And I think Parkinson's law is super fascinating when it comes to fitness, because I think it like obviously applies. Certainly in my experience, this applies. Like I know if I go into the gym and I have like 2 hours, I'll like take the full 2 hours, but I won't be insanely productive. I'll kind of lollygag and just kind of waste my time. However, if I'm crunched for time and I know like, oh shoot, I only have 30 minutes to get to do some serious work, well then Parkinson's law kicks in, and Parkinson's law says that work typically expands to fulfill the amount of time allotted to it. So by giving yourself kind of more compressed deadlines, whether they're voluntary or involuntary, it tends to make you more efficient. It tends to make you just like really kind of focus and attack what needs to get done. So there's that. I think that there's benefit to kind of just restricting yourself to just 15 to 30-minute training sessions, because then you'll be like a laser beam. You'll just get stuff done. You won't waste time texting between sets or anything like that, hopefully. But in terms of just like, can you just like get results with a half an hour? Absolutely. I mean, you can get a lot of work done in a half hour. I think you can get results in 10 minutes. That's why I say like starting out just 10 to 20 minutes in terms of a training block 3 days a week. Don't underestimate how useful that can be. Now, obviously, there's kind of like extrinsic factors at play, like how is your nutrition, what activity are you doing otherwise, are you getting sunlight, are you going out and walking? But assuming that like all the other fundamentals are in place, 10 to 20 minute or certainly up to 30-minute sessions can be enormously effective. I mean, you can run a couple good, I think you can get up and down a good strength ladder and get in a good sizable chunk of swings, both of those in a 30-minute session. And that's going to do a lot to build strength, promote lean muscle, increase your kind of aerobic and anaerobic capacity. So yeah, the idea that you need 60 minutes or else like you haven't had a good workout is such an artificial and arbitrary thing. I don't think that's true at all. I just tend to focus like, what is the goal, and then what is the minimum effective dose? And I think most people most of the time, to give you a more direct answer, Peter, can get most of the results they want with 3 to 4 half-hour sessions per week. Again, assuming some of the other fundamentals are in place with kettlebells. Cool. Linza says, how many weeks would you do this before changing the routine up? So Linza, good question. I should have answered that. And my short answer to that would be 6 weeks. I would say the protocol that I outlined would be a good 6 week. Minimum 6, but you could do up to 8. Yeah, I wouldn't go over that before like taking a deload or adjusting maybe some of the exercises or variables or something like that. So a good 6 to 8 week run with that. Okay, let's do one more question, and then I'll show you guys the alpaca video again. If you weren't here right at the beginning, you really missed out, because we have a new intro and outro video with awesome music and cool farm animals. Up in the air asks, how and when to increase kettlebell weight and what weight amount to increase? Presently, I'm at 16 kilograms, but I can go to 28 kilograms if I lower the reps. I would say, first, it depends on what you're trying to achieve in the program. But the one that I outlined for just a couple minutes ago, after 6 weeks. So if it's a 6-week protocol, I want you to stay with the same weight for all 6 weeks. So if you start with a 16 kilogram, you're going to just use that for the entire 6 weeks. And you might think, well, it's starting to get pretty easy at the end. And I'll say, great, that's awesome. If it feels very easy or light at the end, that's exactly what we want. That means you've gotten stronger and it's lighter. And then after you run through it between 6 to 8 weeks. So whether you do 6 weeks or up to 8 weeks, just keep the weight the same for that entire duration. Then take a week off, and if you want to do it again, then go up a kettlebell size. Do it again with a 20 kilogram, or if you started with an 8, do it again with a 10 or a 12 kilogram or something like that. So keep it simple. I think that there's a lot of benefit to not being over eager to push the weight early on. Again, especially starting out, the goal is mastery of technique and movement practice. So it might feel a little bit heavy starting out, but then at the end, if it feels pretty light, that means you've made awesome progress. And to me, that's just a whole bunch of winning. Okay, friends, thank you for tuning in. We're going to call it here. Do me a favor. If you're enjoying this, if you're on Facebook, like, share, comment, subscribe. If you're on YouTube, same thing. Ring the little bell thing. I think that's what you do on YouTube. If you're listening on the podcast, again, subscribe. Consider leaving a review for the show. That really helps. And last announcement is, if you're tuning in live, I'll have another live stream later today with Dr. Jim, and we're going to talk about mixed modality training. So ideas on combining kettlebells and other pieces of equipment, and how to approach that from a minimalist perspective. So two streams in one day. We're going crazy here. Crazy, I tell you. That will be at 11:30 a.m. So if you want to if you enjoyed having coffee with me, maybe you'll enjoy having lunch with me as well, and Jim next time. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. We will see you when you see you. Here come the alpacas. Fare thee well.